myself again. But it's the only...
Good afternoon and welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and it's the morning after the night before. 3 points, Gavin. What a day to have you on.
Good to be on after 3 points. I'm happy about that.
Valuable 3 points. Newcastle, of course, beating Southampton 3-2. We did a match day live yesterday, covering the ups and downs. And got to say, Gavin, 9 men. I mean, that's a kind of hard ground out win. You look back on in many years to come, and it's one which, with the way the results have gone, to be honest, Brighton and Burnley drew 1-1, and Newcastle open an 11-point gap now between them and the bottom. You'd like to think that would keep them potentially in the Premier League for another season.
Yeah, no, I think Newcastle are going to stay up, but yesterday was a vital win, as you say. I think on a number of counts, it's a home win. It's a 3 points, obviously, which boosts confidence, puts that little distance there, and with the circumstances as well. That shows the kind of character that the fans want to see. So there is a little bit of fight in the team, and when there is that fight and that character, then it gives everyone hope for a finish to the season that's going to avoid relegation for sure.
Yeah, brilliant stuff. I'm sure we'll get asked questions about that a little bit later on. And Gavin's got quite a tight schedule today. We're going to do 45 minutes or which is fantastic. We're actually got Gavin on after I noticed that he had a new book out, and it's called A Greater Glory, From Pitch to Pulpit. A wonderful hardback book for £11.99, which you can pre-order now on Amazon. Out on the 21st of May, I believe. But... first things first, Gavin, I've got to be honest, and you'll have seen this on social media, lots of people saying, why didn't you pick a photograph of you wearing a Newcastle shirt on the cover?
I thought long and hard about it, and that's why they've tried to blank it out in terms of the badge and everything, to try and make it as generic as possible, because obviously I could have picked a really quality Newcastle one as well. I think they just saw the shot, and it's that kind of glory shot, and they liked it. But for sure, it was just meant to be neutral. Newcastle features heavily in the book, as you can imagine. It's actually, I believe it's the central, it's like the middle of the book is the Newcastle chapter. But of course, my whole life is couched in Newcastle with my Geordie roots and my granddad. And then I finished the book actually with a story of the day that we had that brilliant game against Leicester at home. I was actually looking for a photograph to include in the photo section. I put it out on Twitter last week. It's a rare photo I've got of me and Rob Lee holding the trophy, and old Stevie Charlton's right next to us. And I'm kind of making a point, really, that the trophy shines most brightly for him and what it means to the fans. And so if anyone can, the book has gone to print on Friday, but the photo section is going in a couple of days later to give. Literally, we've been in touch with the Chronicle to see if they've got it, or if anyone's got it out there, we'll try and get it in the book itself. But it's a book about Steve. It's a book about my life. What's it like to grow up in a footballing family, to become a professional footballer, what that takes, the schoolboy dreams, playing an FA Cup final. To captain Newcastle, Chelsea, QPR under great managers like Keegan and Hoddle, obviously under Ruud Gullit, not necessarily a great manager, but I'll speak about that in the book, Jerry Francis and many others, to be then on Match of the Day and BBC as a football pundit, and then to leave it for church ministry and what faith means. But even another aspect of the book, Steve, is that it's about life itself with all its complexities. I speak about life and death and suffering and mental health and racism and disability and family and all of these things that every single person that reads the book, every football fan, is going through to some degree, and the wisdom to navigate life. And a third aspect would be probably that I speak about what's it like to change careers, from football to media to then church ministry, and what does it take to be successful in those walks of life. So what does leadership look like? And these are principles that anyone can take into any walk of life. So it's a human interest story as well. It's got leadership stuff in there. And of course, it's set against the backdrop of the beautiful game. And of course, my faith is central to that.
I've got to ask you, why now, Gavin? Why have you decided to do the book now?
Well, I was asked several years ago about doing the book. You should do an autobiography. You should do an autobiography. And I wanted to just sort of step back a little bit when I came out here to anonymity, and I was just sort of starting up in a new country, starting up in this new vocation, and it just seemed the right time to do it. I embarked on writing it a couple of years ago. To do it now, having had this kind of little bit of time away to reflect, and having had several years in this new vocation, it's a timing thing. And I guess at age 50, when I started writing it, you get to that milestone, and it's a marker in life. And to look back then on your life and examine it with some kind of experience and wisdom, it's actually better than if I'd done it 10 years ago, because I've got a bit more experience and reflection on things now that I didn't have then. So the amazing thing about the COVID situation is that last year I was able to, normally you write a book, you get the PDF, and then you send it out to all your potential endorsers. But I sent it out really early on last year, and I knew everyone was going to be at home. So I got some really good endorsements from this book. I've had, and you can read some of them on Amazon as well. They put up there. But Glenn Hoddle did it, Les Ferdinand, David Moyes, Rob Lee, John Motson, Alex McLeish. I got quite a lot of people from across the board that read it. Some who were friends and knew me, others who didn't know so much. So it's got a wide range of endorsers, and I've got people from the world of politics and acting and education, and obviously a couple of people from the church as well. But you don't have to be a Christian to read it. Actually, I don't believe you need to be a football fan to read it even, because there's something for everyone in it. And yet, if you are a football fan, it's going to be gold to you, because there's nuggets of stuff in there, of behind the scenes stuff that I think everyone will find interesting. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, and hopefully it'll point you to a greater glory.
Some of those books that footballers bring out are exposes. They're a chance for somebody to have a big reveal about a particular incident. Is it that kind of book, or are you one of the old school who what happens in the dressing room stays in the dressing room?
We have to buy the book, you see, to see it, to find out. I think you know me, and the fans know me, that I wouldn't be like that in terms of dishing dirt and what have you. At the same time, it's an honest account. So I do tell stuff, and I do tell stories, but it's to make a point. It's not to put someone down. I'm reflective of my own faults in there as well. As I look back on my career, I think, I could have done that better as a captain, that better as a captain. I remember Kevin saying to me, I was a young captain at Newcastle, and I write about this in the book, and he said, you need to give even more of yourself to the team when you're captain. I was vocal, I could lead by example, clearly I was scoring goals, but that little bit extra that you got to give to the rest of the team, I needed to kind of grow into that. And so all of that said, I think it's a book that the people will find interesting, and maybe there's a younger generation that don't know me so much, but there's plenty that will. And I think it's one of those that there's wisdom in it for the younger generation. So you'll pass it on to someone else of a younger generation and say, look, this is what it means to be a footballer. This is what it means to play for your club. And this is what life is in a bigger perspective.
You touched on the pandemic. I mean, how has it affected you and the family, Gavin? I mean, it's probably about 8 or 9 months since we last spoke in this capacity. Have you managed to cope mentally and, physically, I suppose? Yes, yeah, we have. I mean, obviously it's been difficult out here as it is in England, but just not as strict a lockdown, because we just don't have as many cases. And Alberta, where I live, the province that I live in Canada, land mass is as big as the UK, but there's 4 million people in it. So you can imagine there's just not the number of cases. But at the same time, there's people have died, people have got sick. And of course, there's the other side to it, is the economic knock-on effect, where
health, people just think, oh, health is all about the medical side. Well, actually, it's not just all about the medical side. The economic side has a massive effect. The relational side has a huge effect. So mental health has been a real issue for many people around here. Of course, in the church, we're dealing with lots of different people, and we've been able to keep open, which is good. I'll be there today, and we've got a wide range of people from all different ages. Some are in the vulnerable category, and so we've been able to provide, what they need in these days as well. So that's been quite rewarding. It's minus 32 here today, just to let you know. Minus 32, cold.
I was going to complain about the bit of snow that we've got outside here, but that makes it pale and insignificant.
I used to think Benwell got cold. When you come out that old changing room at Benwell, walk around the corner onto the field, and the wind would hit you. I used to think that was cold, but it's like nothing here. And then the other bit of stuff that I'm dealing with at the moment is I'm waiting any day for the birth of my first grandchild. That is Jake, my son. Jake, who was born in Newcastle, Jake the Geordie, who's 27 now. He and his wife expecting the first child, and literally it's now 4 days overdue. So
wow.
We could be grandparents any second now.
Oh, well, good luck to that, and pass on my best to Jake and his partner. That's fantastic news, mate. Good luck. Look forward to hearing the positive news. I've dug out the photograph that you were talking about. Yes. There it is. So if anyone has a good copy of that, it can wing its way to Gavin. That could make it into the book. So anyone has got any idea who took it, that would be valuable. There's got to be somebody who knows where that photo is, where who owns the copyright, whatever. If anybody can help, please either give Gavin a shout on Twitter, or give me a shout if you want on Facebook or by email or whatever. But yeah, please do give us a shout, because Gavin would love to have that in the book. It's a wonderful photo, and there is, just in the distance, you can see old Stevie Charlton, who I used to stand next to in the paddocks back in the day. In those days. So fantastic time, fantastic era. Rich Story's come in first with a question, and he did send this over to us on Twitter. He says, can you ask Gavin if he knows what the significance of this photograph is?
The significance of it? Well, I think I just signed, obviously. Is this a trick question?
It's actually, it did trick me, because I didn't know. It's apparently the reveal of the blue star on the strip. Because I think we were playing in Greenhalls before that, Gavin.
Yes, no, that's right. Yeah, I remember now, because Roy was captain, Big Roy, and of course I'd just come. I'm not sure the date on that, but I just arrived fairly before that. And of course, me and you signing, Roy captain, and that's why I'm pointing at the star. But now I do remember it.
Yeah, fantastic. They become the official club sponsors, McEwen's Lager and the Brown Ale Newcastle Brewery Star. Amazing sponsor, which everybody remembers with those amazing times. But thanks for that, Rich. Hope you're well. Darren says, afternoon, Steve and Gavin. I just want to ask Gavin, what are his thoughts on Steve Bruce? Now, we did ask you this when you were last on, and can he keep us up this season? Well, you've answered that question already. You do think Newcastle will stay up. I would like to add to Darren's question, what's your thoughts on Graham Jones coming in? Because Newcastle had hit a rut. They weren't winning games. It was quite clear that there was some issues which were developing within that dressing room. Yeah. However, Graham Jones has come in, and out the last 3 games, there's been a definite change in style of play. We've been more attacking, more on the front foot. And we've won, 6 points out of a possible 9. So have we had a bit of a bounce back, do you think, by bringing a coach in? And what are your views on Steve Bruce, Darren? Darren asks.
So firstly on Steve, you got to remember, maybe I'm a little bit biased, because I grew up watching Brucey play at Priestfield Stadium at Gillingham when my dad had him as a 19-year-old, and he was just awesome. I mean, he was a Lionheart defender. I was a 15-year-old kid going down to Priestfield to watch him, and he was absolutely magnificent. And I knew him as well. He was good lad, good Geordie lad. And he had a lot of time for me and gave me great encouragement. Of course, then we played against each other. His career says it all. Is he the right man for Newcastle for the long term? He's, probably people will say no, and it's difficult under this owner for anyone, I would say. But long term, maybe not. I suppose, when Steve said a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago, what it was about, just staying in mid-table, and a lot of the fans were kind of, well, that's not very ambitious. Maybe he was just trying to be realistic. Same time, I remember when Kevin Keegan came in and he told us, we're staying up, we're taking off. And anyone who doesn't want to be here, you come see me, you'll be gone. It kind of, Keegan made you believe the impossible, or what seems to be the impossible. And that's what great leaders do, is they actually convince you that you can go where they see you can go. And it actually, it draws you up and out, and it draws the fans up and out as well. So I think Newcastle will stay up. Everything, to me, for the future of Newcastle depends on this ownership thing, this takeover thing, because I think as long as this guy's at the helm in charge, as in, Ashley, anyone's going to be hamstrung under him, anyone. As far as the coach is concerned, don't know masses about him. Obviously, he has had some success. But, to bring in someone with a bright coach in mind, as long as you as the manager, get on well, it can be very, very helpful. It can give you that time to step back a little bit as well. Let a guy take some sessions. You as the manager step back, get a little bit more of a bigger picture. Alec Ferguson talks about that in his book, Leading, that Jock Steiner told him that as a very young manager. He says, get back off that training pitch and have the big view. If you're always on there in amongst players you can't see. And of course, Fergie had that. He had Kidd there, Brian Kidd. And so another man in there. Funny, I was thinking as well about the coaching setup. A couple of thoughts I'd had on that, just as before he came in. I was thinking about how Derek Fazackerley was integral to us doing very, very well and obviously getting promotion when you had Keegan and Terry Mack. Because Faz was a coach, right? Terry Mack was Keegan's mate, and he was a buffer, and he could motivate like Keegan, and he was trustworthy. And Terry Mack could put on a session, and so could Kevin. But Faz was a coach, and of course he worked that defensive side that we needed, whereas Keegan and Terry Mack could do the attacking side. This fella's good, apparently, with more of the attacking side. I was actually thinking, gosh, if I was there, I look at some of these players and I think I'd love to get hold of them and just get them going on their, attacking play, their movement from midfield, getting in the box, putting on sessions for finishing, improving technique, getting confidence up amongst the attacking players in that team. Because Newcastle, as a club, historically, you have to have that attacking thrust. It always pleases the fans, and it's what Newcastle are about. And of course, we've seen that. I only saw highlights yesterday, but obviously you got the new boy scoring with the debut there. That's as well. He played midfield, right?
Yes, yeah.
See, there you've got someone that can get you goals from midfield. I got goals from midfield. That's gold dust for you. Someone arriving, and just the way that the goal came about there was, typically to arriving in the box there, that's a goal. That's extra dimension. You need that. Newcastle need that goal-scoring, creative midfielder. Almiron looks lively and somewhat confident. And so Maximin, on the highlights I showed, that power and strength that could kind of unsettle defences. And of course, Wilson got the knock there. There's some goals there with him. All of a sudden, I look and go, wow, there's some goals there, there's some pace, there's some strength. I only wish that you could get 50,000 Geordies in that stadium because it does make a difference, right? I played there, obviously, but then when I came back a year later with Chelsea and I'm playing up at Newcastle, I'm thinking, boy, suddenly for the away team in this stadium with the fans behind and the team playing attacking football, it's worth that goal. So if the new coach Jones can do what he's apparently done here so far, it's got to be a help. And I'm sure that Steve Bruce is humble enough to be grateful for that help, because he ought to care about the club above everything else.
Yeah, good answer to a good question. Paul Oxley says, Gavin, I'm a huge fan. I watched all the Newcastle home games you played in. Who is the best player you played with?
Best player I played with for Newcastle, I did love playing with Lee Clark and David Kelly personally, but Rob Lee was the best, I think. And he got better and better. Just a highly intelligent player. I think if you speak to lots of players around the Newcastle dressing room at that time and the entertainers era, they go, Rob Lee, phenomenal. Could get a goal, could, as he moved into the centre of midfield, could tackle, timed his runs. He's just one of those players that was just super consistent and strong as well. Rob was a strong player and would play a lot of games. So Rob for me.
Okay, Barry Hogan says, after watching Kevin Dillon and Brock, you were my favourite. You were like a bolt of lightning, amazing ability to run with the ball and be in the right place at the right time. I was gutted when you left. Thanks for that, Barry. And Tom Lynch says, Gavin, what was your most memorable match as a Newcastle player?
I have to say my most memorable match was the game against Leicester when we stayed up the season before we got promotion. As great as that last day was when we won 7-1 and we're, marching around the stadium, in terms of pressure, in terms of what would have happened in Newcastle going down to the third tier for the first time in their history, all that was at stake, the nerves. I write about this in the book. I have a section just on the game. I'm telling you what it's like. I actually write in the present tense to tell you actually what it felt like on that day. And then to be out there on the field, it felt like we were gladiators. That's what I put in the book. I said we were like gladiators going out today. And the pressure was huge. Newcastle faithfuls in the corner there, roaring. And I scored. And, of course, they equalised late on. And then we get the own goal just before the end. It was like such relief that I just can't help that that's the one that's etched in my memory. Because I think as well, if we had gone down, obviously the game against Portsmouth was huge because that, David Kelly gave us a chance for that goal. But whatever, if we had gone down that season, who knows what would have happened to Newcastle with all the financial stuff that had gone on as well. And Keegan May probably wouldn't have stayed on.
Yes, I would agree. Big shout out to our sponsors, Spider VPN, who are sponsoring the StreamYard podcast for this month. Also a big shout out to John at qtechshop.co.uk, who makes pool tables and snooker tables and much, much more in Wallsend and Newcastle. They also make our t-shirts, which you can buy at newcastlelegends.com. Last but by no means least, big shout out to John at Jab, who does all the flyers and posters for us. And I do want to quickly plug Alan Shearer's raffle. We'll be doing that all the way through this month. Win a pair of Alan Shearer's match boots, his shirt and his captain's armband from the 250th goal that he scored as a Newcastle player. I've just put the link into the chat. It was great to have Alan on the show on Friday night, and please join in that. It's only £10 for a ticket. Currently up to £65,630, and that's only been going 3 days, raising valuable funds for the Alan Shearer the Alan Shearer Centre in Newcastle. Massive thanks to everybody who has supported that, and I'm sure Alan will be absolutely delighted. Paul Oxley, he says, have you prayed for Steve Bruce to do a job recently? He says, as we've picked up some points lately and we're certainly playing better. He also asks if you remember this game. He's dug out one of his programmes. Plymouth at home, 1991, September the 4th. He says, do you remember that game? I'm not sure if it was a significant game. My memory's not so good with that one. But
no, not sure. I remember that beard.
Yeah, that was
two things. I remember that beard, and what happened is Ozzy was manager, and I grew that beard over the summer. I come back for it pre-season, and the lads absolutely hammered me. I had so many nicknames. I was called John the Baptist. I was called the Yorkshire Ripper. I was called Son of Ozzy. I was called Ricky Villa. But pre-season, I was flying, and I was banging in the goals, and I'm thinking, yes, this beard is doing it. I started that season, and I couldn't get the goal. I'm thinking the beard's weighing me down. Maybe that was one of the last games I wore the beard, and I'm putting that cross in from the left-hand side, but I used to do those little crosses. I shaved it off, and that season I got about 21, 22 goals after they got rid of the beard.
That's a classic. You've never said that one. We talk about two sublime people, John the Baptist and Jack the Ripper. Dear me, how. Barry says, did you ever get close to the England setup? He said, couldn't believe you never got a call up. He says, you were much better than David Platt.
Well, I don't know about better than David Platt, but Platt's record for England scoring, I think I talk about goal scoring midfielders in my book, and of course Lampard is the greatest. I don't think he'll be beaten for the goals that he's got per game, but I think Platt's was almost like 1 in 2 for England. At the same time, I remember Tony Cascarino saying to me when I was at Chelsea, he said, "You're the closest to David Platt that I've seen in terms of being able to get goals from midfield." And I was close. I got into 2 England training squads when I was at Chelsea. Terry Venables called me up. And in the first one, I remember playing with Peter Beardsley in a practice match at Bisham Abbey. And Venables was playing the Christmas tree formation then. And I think maybe Shearer might have been up front. And me and Beardsley playing like those inside forwards behind. I mean, it was fantastic. And I did really well. And I was in line to get called up the following week for an England B international, but the next week after was the FA Cup final against Manchester United, and so Glenn Hoddle couldn't risk me playing in an England B. So I wonder if I got that, B cap and done okay if I'd got in. The next season I was called in again, so just a little bit short. But I think at my best, I was in the next maybe 5 to 10 players to be in that England squad. And I think I could have played for England. I got, a few caps at least, because I think there were players that got caps that maybe weren't as good as me. But there you go. Sometimes it's that kind of roll of the dice, or just an injury or whatever that stops you getting in, or someone is just playing too well for you to nick the spot. But to be around the setup was phenomenal, because I remember Gaza being on the team bus with us. We'd go into training. I mean, it's just another level when you're at England. The press is huge. It's just incredible just for a training session. And Gaza dyed his hair blonde. Remember when he dyed his hair?
Yeah.
And no one knew he'd come out with it blonde in the morning of he says the press are going to love this as they get off the bus. And of course they were snapping him, and it was all about Gaza as usual. But just little memories you have just being with the lads, and it's still the same whether you're with the lads in the training ground for your club team or with the lads at England. It's still that kind of camaraderie and team spirit.
Yeah, Guy Carr asks, do you hear anything from David Kelly? And John Askew says, did you enjoy playing with David Kelly?
Yeah, David Kelly was a fantastic player to play with. He was fit, he was decent in the air, he was a good goal scorer. And he was really mobile. So that's what made David, he wasn't like Mickey Quinn was stronger. He was, and he was like a number 9 in the sense like he could hold people off. Kelly wasn't weak, but he was so mobile. He could leg it into the channels. And of course, with me and him playing up front together, the defenders didn't know what to do because the movement was too good for them. And we would play off each other a little bit. We had a good understanding. So I would spin into little semi-wide areas, and Kelly knew. You see the program that was sent in with that little left foot cross. If I got into a position like that, I'd twist, turn, and all I needed was half a yard, and I'd clip it in there and hang it up. Like I was thinking, if I'd played with Shearer, I'd made a few goals for Shearer, because David knew as soon as he saw me, I'd spin, clip it, and he scored numerous goals, just coming in and just nodding them in with his head. Because he had that leap and ability to guide it in the corner. So David could score headers, goals, right foot, left foot, and he was a good lad as well. So he was a personality around the dressing room. So David Kelly goes down in my book in Newcastle history as a very good striker who the fans, I think true fans, will always love.
Yep, I would agree. Kirk says, about 1990, I was doing kick-ups in South Shields, waiting for a bus to the town centre. I was approached by a woman who claimed to be either your grandmother or auntie. She was proud as hell, mate.
It's probably one of my aunts that lives up there that told you that. But yeah, I do have quite a few family in the northeast, still do. And I get my cousin Simon's always texting me, and I speak to him. He gives me, I know he gets. He's watching.
He's watching.
He tells me he's my almanac of all things Newcastle, Simon.
Yeah, he's a top lad. Good to have you on, Simon, as always. Terry Armstrong says, can you say hi to Gavin Amanda and thank him for keeping in touch? Looking forward to meeting up again when we can.
good lad Terry. Remember, Terry was a young lad when I was at Newcastle, and he always remembers myself and my wife having a little chat with him. He wasn't too well in those days, but he got through the health issues, and now he's a married man. So good to hear from him.
Yep, doing well. Big Dunstan fan as well. And I know you and I did a talk in there back in the days when you could do those kind of things. Andrea, good afternoon. He says, what did Gavin think of the Entertainers team 93 to 97? And does he regret not staying for his exciting period? I mean, it wasn't a choice that you made very easily. It was obviously because of what was going on in your personal life. But what was your views of that team that went on to become known as the Entertainers? Because you were there at the very start of that.
Beginning of the Entertainers, yeah. I mean, the football we played in our promotion season was the best that I ever experienced in any team I played for. We would have graced any division. Just because it wasn't in the Premier League, it didn't make a difference to me. And they just carried it on. And of course, then you start to add the Bearsleys, the Ginolas, and these different folks, and it just got better and better. And Ferdinand, of course, came in and scored goals. No, I thought that Newcastle. I'd obviously love to see Newcastle win the Premiership. They did get so close. I think when I was a kid, Liverpool. I was a Charlton supporter, obviously because of my dad. I kept an eye on Newcastle because of my roots. I was QPR because I played for them from 16 onwards. But Liverpool were my second team growing up, because they had such a good team and they played such great football back in the day. With Ian Rush and Dalglish and Craig Johnson and Sammy Lee, all those players. And I thought at that period that Newcastle were becoming people's favourite second team because of just the purity of football that they played, the entertainment that they had, that everyone just loved to watch Newcastle. That's saying something, isn't it? When you were speaking to people and they're saying their second team would be actually Newcastle to watch. I mean, long way down that we've come from those days when you think about it. But that's the height that team, I think, got to. And I used to love to watch them play.
Yeah, Jason Carter, he says, Gavin, out of all the clubs you played for, your best goals to games ratio was with Newcastle. What was the secret to that great tally? Was it the best team you've played in, maybe? I
think there was a key. Obviously, I'm grateful to the late Jim Smith for bringing me in. And he wanted me to be an attacking midfielder and to get goals from midfield. He knew me as a kid. He gave me my debut at QPR. And but when Ozzy came, as he did well for so many young players that went on to have good careers, although I was not a kid then, I was 23. But he put me in the diamond system behind the front two and released me to go forward and score goals. And I practiced for hours and hours. Shooting, scoring from any angle, first time dribbling, shots from crosses, rebounds. I remember practicing for ages rebounds. I used to watch Mickey Quinn, who was, he was just a true goal scorer. I learned so much from watching Quinny. And then, of course, Keegan came and he just kind of gave me that platform to continue, really. There were times, to be honest with you, when I played at Newcastle, when I went out on the field and I felt I could score at any game here and do what I wanted, really. I felt that confident. And you're right, that was the best goals per game ratio of any team that I played for. And when you hit it off at a club like that, it's something special, even if it's for just a few years.
Gareth Vardy from Spider VPN, our sponsor. Good afternoon. He says, Mickey Quinn, who you've just mentioned, seems a right character. Have you got any funny stories of your time working with him?
Maybe not that could be repeated on air, but...
I thought you were going to say they're in the book.
Well, no, I mean, I'll talk about Quinny when he left the club and the little bit with, Keegan that he had there. And there was a little bit of a clash there. Quinny was funny. Quinny. It's funny because, we very different backgrounds, yeah. He was his different background, me and Quinny, but I really, really liked him, and he was a bit older than me as well, so I kind of looked up to him a bit. But on the field, I really enjoyed playing with him because he was intelligent as well. People just think, in training we used to call him the swivel and shoot machine because he would just get the ball, swivel and shoot, more often than not score. He's single-minded and selfish in that respect. But when you play with Quinny on the field, strong, could hold people off, and he laid little balls in paths for you. And as a player, playing off Quinny was really, really enjoyable. One thing I do remember is that when we went to Brighton, I think it was, we were playing Brighton away, and we stayed in a hotel. And Quinny and John Burridge staged a fight in the reception area. And what they got is they got these old shirts that they didn't care about, and they pretended to like square up to each other. And all of a sudden they started wrestling with each other. And they're ripping the shirt sleeves off and wrestling around. You know, Budgie's a nutcase and Quinny's strong, you know. But it was all set up. And of course the staff of the hotel and everyone all the guests are walking in, they're going, what's going on here? You know, they were just about to call the police. Of course, then they've turned around and said, you know, it's all just a joke. But that was Quinny. He had a little bit of a crazy streak to him on and off the field.
Joe Walker says, Ned Kelly stood on my new trainers whilst getting out of his car outside the Milburn stand. Me mum went mad when I got in because there was pink black scuff across the front. She was fuming, but I was delighted. Joe also says, can you put into words the immediate impact of Kevin coming in?
The immediate impact of Kevin coming in one word, was inspirational. He, like I said earlier in this interview, he gave us belief. He gave us belief. And he was a true leader of men. I think his wife said that in an interview in the newspapers, and I thought that leader of men he is. And of course, that's not an easy thing to be, and especially when you're coming to Newcastle, especially when you're coming to a team that was struggling, to turn the ship around like he did. To have the strength, the character to do that. He had been not in the game, right, for 7 years. He didn't know all the players in the league or anything like that. But to do what he did was quite remarkable. He had the admiration of me and the other players, as well as the fans. But he also had that bit of steel. Like, he stood up to John Paul, and there was that time where he was gone. Like, we couldn't believe it. Like, he decided they were leaving because he wasn't coming up with what he wanted. He was willing to stand on principle. Simply inspirational. And even when I was at the end of my contract after the first few months he was in charge, and I was a free agent. Clubs wanted me, Premier League clubs wanted me, Middlesbrough, West Ham, Chelsea, different ones. But I always knew I was going to sign for Newcastle, really. And it was, Keegan was the key in it all, and I'm so glad that I signed that contract and I was part of that team that went up.
Trey and Son says, Gavin, you played for my two favourite ever players, Keegan and Hoddle. What was Hoddle like as a manager, and what was it like to play for him? He was the best passer of the ball that I ever saw.
Yes, Keegan called me when I signed for Chelsea, and he said you'd learn more from playing with Glenn Hoddle in training than anything else. He said he's a genius. And it was true. And Glenn was my player manager as well. And I had posters of Keegan and Hoddle on my bedroom wall as a kid. In fact, I posted on Twitter a few weeks ago a picture of myself. I'm only about 15. And I noticed in the background, I think there's a poster of Keegan. I think it was in his Southampton days. Just behind me, I'm only 15. I'm thinking, wow, a 15-year-old lad didn't know that, 9 years later, that guy was going to be his manager. But Glenn was a visionary on the field. So he saw things no one else saw, and he could execute the pass. He didn't have pace, he didn't have tackling ability, he wasn't good in the air, but he owned the football. He was a visionary on the field, but he was a visionary off the field as well. And in a different way to Keegan, cast vision for the players and took Chelsea when I was there on what is a chapter in my book called The King's Road Revolution.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. John says, was KK a good technician, or was it mainly his enthusiasm that made him a top manager? Tactician
or technician?
Tactician.
Tactician. He was more of a motivator, but when you think, the guy managed England, right? So he's not like daft in terms of tactics. He could see a game. He knew how to make changes in a game to win it, to bring on a player. He was good at putting players together. So you see how you played off each other in training and tried it in matches. So he had tactics in that sense. Was he the great tactician like Glenn Hoddle was, or maybe a Terry Venable? Maybe not. No, but there were other strengths to him that I wouldn't say he didn't have any tactics at all, for sure. But a man motivator and a leader was his greatest strength, we say.
Yeah, definitely. There's no doubt about that. Tom Dixon says, Gavin, I saw your photo the other day standing next to the Alan Shearer statue. Yeah, that was a good one that we took, wasn't it, when you were there? We managed to get you back down the tunnel and onto the pitch. Big thank you to Mark Hannon at the football club for sorting that out when you were here. And I mean, the memories must have been flowing when you went down that tunnel, Gavin.
Yeah, that was great day when you had me back up. You took that photo there and by the Shearer statue. And I haven't been down the tunnel for so many years. And of course, it was just a thrill. I still get goosebumps when I watch that old bit of video. It's a wonderful thing. I guess fans think, well, that it's so historic. The way the lads there, and the sign, and then when you've done it and lived that dream, when you do it week in and week out, I think some players can take it for granted. I never did. It was just always that little bit of special when you walk down that tunnel. And I think some players that are coming from other countries, they don't have that same sense of what it is to play for Newcastle, that history. And that's why you need people around the club that know the history of the club and they keep that going and keep that thread going. And I always even think of, when Chelsea were doing well, for instance, they had people like Dennis Wise, or you think of John Terry. They knew what the club was all about, and they made sure the other players didn't forget that. John Terry got hold of Didier Drogba in the dressing room when Drogba was diving around all over the place, and I don't pin him up against the wall, but he told him, "You don't do that at Chelsea Football Club. This is not what we're about." You need to have those kind of characters in the dressing room. You need to have them around the backroom staff. And keep the thread of what the club means going. And of course, then when we walk back, when I walked down the tunnel that day, we brought back all those sort of great memories of what the club's all about.
Yeah, fantastic. Lots of nice comments coming in. Sorry we couldn't get through them all, and Gavin does have to get off because he is a busy man, as you'd imagine, on a Sunday. Mark says, said it before and I'll say it again, the man who scored one of the biggest goals in Newcastle history. Thanks again, Gavin. And the next one is from Joe again. Gavin, how much room was there for religion in football back then? We'll finish with this one. Did the clubs promote or look after spiritual needs? And do you know if it's any better now, especially with such diversity around? Great question, Joe.
Great question. And not so much then, although there were a few club chaplains. Now there's like 70, I believe, in the 90 football clubs. There's 70 club chaplains. Who are there for the players to talk if there's any need, if they're injured or feeling down, depressed, mental health. We talked about that briefly. And then, of course, you have the influx of players from the continent, a little bit more open about their faith. And so in some ways became maybe easier to talk about. In my day, there was far less Christians in football. Cyril Regis was a big name that was a Christian. That was a friend of mine, and of course he died a few years ago. But well needed in the game, and I'm glad to see that the chaplains who have a difficult job have actually kind of made good inroads there at the clubs, and it's a good facility for the clubs to have.
No, it is. It's fantastic. Well, there we go. One more plug for the book, Gavin. A Greater Glory from Pitch to Pulpit by Gavin Peacock. $11.99 for a hardback. You're very, very generous with that price. I've got to be honest. Most hardbacks are a lot more expensive. It's out officially on the 21st of May. But people...
Sorry, Steve. Sorry to interrupt. I think it's the 7th of May.
Wonderful.
The way I wrote it was May 21, as in May 21. But it's the 7th of May. But it's available on Amazon now.
Yeah, and you can pre-order on there, and I'm sure that once we get back to some kind of normality, Gavin, and we get you back over here, you'll quite happily do something. Maybe it's at the back page shop or something like that. Go in and sign people's copies.
Yeah, love to do that.
Be fantastic. Okay, great to have you on, mate. Good luck with the imminent arrival of the grandson or granddaughter, and you stay safe, mate, and look forward to having you back in Newcastle when we can, mate. But you take care. Love to the family.
Yeah, and to you, Steve. Can't wait to come back, and you take care.
Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again.